Howdy folks, and welcome to FoundFlix. On this Eating Explained, we're checking out Oddity, where a psychic medium attempts to uncover the truth behind her sister's murder at the site of the crime. I had high hopes for this one from the trailer, mainly for the weird wooden dude featured, and it also comes from Damien McCarthy, who previously brought us Caveat. Even if it ended up being not exactly what I expected, Oddity is much more than just the creepy wooden guy. McCarthy has crafted a quite sophisticated supernatural tale, a ghost story done right. What really drew me in was the way that the story is structured. It's more like a mystery with a supernatural bend. Throughout, information is slowly presented that fills in more details of the story and changes everything in some surprising ways. There's also a lot of things that aren't really delved into, including the wooden man as well. I also think it's best to not over-explain everything, and I think the story does a good job of balancing all that while still giving us plenty of spooks. So let's check out Oddity, breaking down the story, including what we do learn about the mysterious wooden man, and explaining the surprising ending. Flying over a cold lake in Ireland, the wind whistles. It gives way to lush greenery up on a cliff, and a long winding road cuts through the wilderness. We come to a decaying old manor, and it is definitely out in the countryside. A woman, Dani, is there by herself, singing songs and doing work around the house. She affixes a piece of wood in the floor, appearing almost like a trap door. An alarm chimes, and a shutter is automatically clicked on a camera in another room with a yellow tent. The timer goes off again, and clicks another photo, as though she is trying to capture something specifically. Ghosts? Could be. Outside, she rummages through her car retrieving a jacket, and she is here all by herself at the massive and certainly spooky grounds. Her cell phone goes off, and she checks it with a slight smile. Meanwhile, at a psychiatric facility, a patient is out doodling on a stairwell. He's joined by the oppressive orderly Ivan, asking him gravely what he's doing, and he orders him back inside. In one of the rooms, there's another patient with a mask completely covering his face, and probably for a good reason. The head doctor, Tim, is Dani's spouse, and he gives her a call. She's happy to report she's found a spot with signal in the house, but he's more interested if she's planning on still staying at the house overnight. She confirms as much and brings up wanting to invite her sister out for dinner the next day. She's worried about her. Tim counters that Darcy can take care of herself, and she disagrees. She needs her to help her go to her appointments, and she only gets mad whenever she asks her about her health. He offers to ask her instead. He is a doctor after all. He's fine even if she does get mad. He's okay with being the villain. She gushes that he's her hero, and he leaves to get back to work, exchanging I love yous. He notices the balls on his desk going, and a patient is there looking out of sorts. Tim tells him to come along and stretch his legs. Dani tries calling her sister, and it goes straight to voicemail. Guess what? We are connected, she tells her, and hangs up. Night falls at the creepy house, a single light on down in the room from her tent, glowing from within. She returns to her car and stares out into the blackness surrounding her. She grabs a flashlight, pointing it over the house, but finds nothing out of the ordinary. She heads back inside, locking the door up. Right after, there's a creaking noise heard. Dani stops and stares in confusion, focusing on the door and its little metal peephole. She double checks it's locked and slides the door open, shocked to see a hooded man there with a glass eye. He wants her to open the door, and I'm like, no thank you. She wants to know what he wants, and he claims she's in trouble. He saw that she went to the car and left the door open. Someone was able to sneak inside during that without her noticing. She scoffs, what? In disbelief, and he reiterates that someone is in there now. Dani stammers that she didn't see anyone, and he maintains that they slipped right past her when her back was turned. She demands to know what he's doing here anyway, and warns that her husband will be home soon. The man Olin mumbles that Dr. Timms works nights, indicating that he knows her husband somehow. Dani realizes he must be a patient of Ted's. He pounds on the door, demanding she open it. I'm trying to help you! Dani is even more on edge and calls out to the house. Is anybody there? Olin points out that they're not gonna answer, and she asks again anyway. Dani still doesn't believe him. He's made a mistake and wants him to leave now. If not, she's going to call the police. He's surprisingly totally cool with this. Yeah, call them, he agrees. Unfortunately, she cannot find her phone, and he doesn't have one either. She suddenly hears more creaking from nearby, and now might be believing him. Olin maintains he saw someone in there. Dani wonders if she opens the door, what is he gonna do? I'll look around, he offers, and if he doesn't see anyone, he promises to leave. She peers back into the dark and considers. It looks like she ultimately is going to allow him in, going for the lock. Yeah, good, he encourages, although we don't actually see her unlock the door. We do at the very least know this is the last time Dani is seen alive. In a quite large city by comparison to where the house is, it is also the location of Ted's facility. That same patient scribbles away, seeing several drawings covering the walls, including Olin and what looks like several other patients. He's distracted by nearby screaming and thudding, sounding as though someone else is being attacked. He turns down the radio and listens more intently. He tiptoes to to the door, putting his head on the wood, taking in more of the odd sounds. He opens out to grunting and screams and quickly slams the door shut. There's more strangeness heard and he slides under the bed. His door swings open, hearing more strange screeching and grunts. The footsteps thud closer to him, only to turn tail and leave. He cautiously steps into the other room, staring at something on the ground. He leans down and comes up with blood all over his hand. The body is obliterated, and seeing that yellow glass eye, know that it must be Olin. Presumably, he's been blamed for Danny's murder, and someone was trying to cover it up. Ted pays a visit to Danny's blind twin sister Darcy, who runs an antique shop in town. Not knowing who it is initially, she tells him to take a look around. She also warns that if you steal something, you should know that every object in here is cursed. Well, that's bad, but the curse is lifted at the time of purchase. That's good. Cursed? Ted asks, clearly not a believer in the supernatural. Does that really deter shoplifting? Darcy smiles. You'd be surprised how many stolen items have been brought back to her, the thief wondering what caused their recent string of bad luck. He says her mother would be proud, and Darcy recognizes that it is Ted, the two sharing a stiff, slightly awkward hug. She shows off a recently acquired cursed item, a haunted hotel bell. She recounts how an unpleasant man spent most of his life working as a bellboy. One night, when showing a drunk guest to his room, the guest shoved him down the stairs. The man broke his neck and died in the fall. Then sometime after his death, somebody rang the bell, and guess who came running? Ted nods in disbelief. Are you really telling me it was the dead bellboy that came? She chuckles. Well, ring it and let's see what happens. It's not something to be played with. The last two who rang it were found dead. Ted laughs again, only giving her an okay in response. Darcy says it was her sister's goal to open that closed mind of his. He acknowledges that she did try, but I'm a doctor. It's all about science and logic, he proclaims. He then informs her that Declan, the guy drawing all the pictures, I assume died of a heart attack. He was at the same halfway house as Olin. He reveals that he has found something of Olin's, producing a kerchief. Enclosed is his glass eye. Ted blames himself for releasing Olin too early. He should have seen it. He's confused why she wants the eye, and Darcy says that he took her sister's life and she wants to see what was going on in his mind the night that her sis died. Did he have any regret or only fear? She wants to come by the house for dinner soon, learning that it's almost been a year since Danny passed. He stammers, maybe in a week or so. We? Darcy asks. Yeah, Yana, my girlfriend. She's shocked that he's moved on so quickly, and he says that he knows her from the hospital. When Danny died, she was there for me. He suggests maybe she should come by for a visit if she's ready to go back there. She looks distressed, mumbling, maybe. He gives her a curt goodbye and takes his leave. Later, Darcy locks up for the night, replaying that last phone message from her sister telling her they are connected. She continues with some friendly banter before saying that she followed Darcy's advice regarding the camera as seen in the opening with the timer. She has captured some orbs, she says, but did hope that in an old place like this, there would have to be at least one ghost running around. Seems she too was at least a little interested in the supernatural as well. Danny lights a candle in tribute to her twin, and the message continues about making upcoming dinner plans. She unwraps the fabric, revealing Olin's glass eye. She closes her eyes and focuses her mind. She removes her gloves, hovering over the object, and takes a few moments before giving it a cursory touch. Showing off her apparent psychic abilities, able to see things by touching objects, she is flashed to a glimpse of the patient along with her sister. However, there's a blink of a guy in a weird white mask. This other figure comes into focus and the candle blows out. Rattled, she rushes back to her store with purpose. There's also the odd-eyed bunny from the director's previous film, Caveat, up on display. She comes to a trunk, and when placing her hands upon it, there's glimpses of several of the cursed collection. The noise becomes overwhelming and the bunny collapses, cute little symbols. We don't get quite what Darcy is up to just yet, but based on her vision, she believes there was indeed a third party in the house the night her sister died. Whatever in the trunk is gonna help her get to the bottom of it. Dr. Ted wakes up in the morning, now living with his new girlfriend Yana in the house where Danny died. She complains of not being able to sleep when she's all alone in the house, as he is still working late at night, just as Danny complained of as well. He knows that an older doctor is set to retire soon and hopes that he can finally get on a regular schedule. Yana found something amongst the belongings scattered around the place, Danny's old camera. Ted doesn't seem too interested in keeping it, even when she tells him there's a bunch of pictures of the pair on there. She even thinks that it would be a bit odd for him to not want to hold on to those. He relents to at least store it for a bit, and she has some other stranger photos to show off. In the photos, there is a distinct figure in the doorframe that sure looks like Danny. The only problem, these pictures were taken 2 days ago. Looks like we might have a ghost up in the house after all. He dismisses it. It must be merely double exposure or whatever, but she recalls something else strange when staying alone one night. We see her ascending the stairs and looks down the hall. As soon as clicking off the lights, she suddenly feels on edge. She looks back to 100% Danny's spirit there, and when flipping the lights back, she's gone. Ted isn't buying it. He gets this craziness at work, he doesn't need it at home too. Yana is insulted by his calling her crazy. She's just relaying what she saw. Maybe not Danny's ghost, and he blames it on her lack of sleep. Regardless, she's had enough here and wants to stay at her place in the city until his schedule changes. He's happy to oblige and wants to clarify his dead wife is not haunting the house. Yana apologizes, and they stay in denial. Spirits and whatnot, that sounds like crazy old Darcy. Speaking of, she had a big old wooden crate delivered, and she has no idea what's inside or locked up or whatever. Maybe she's inside. They happen to look through the window, and what do you know it? Darcy is here! Ted is flustered by her appearance, giving her a cold hello. He guides her inside, and she meets Yana, and vice versa. There's some confusion by her showing up, and Darcy reminds him of their combo at the store. You know, having dinner next week. And today is not just any other day, today is a 1-year anniversary of Danny's death. Ted tries to usher away as quickly as possible. He's off to work, and Yana has plans in the city. So, you know, catch you later. Darcy oddly is fine with that, even though she would be left at the house alone. Yana cannot believe it, and Darcy pores over the crate that she sent over. She removes a key from around her neck and unlocks the box. Yana is curious what's inside, and the lid is cracked open. She leaves to go fetch some blankets, and Ted is also curious about the crate. Darcy reveals that it first belonged to her mother, who wanted her to have it. Ted still isn't too stoked about the strange present, but if it was her mom's and she truly wanted him to have it, then thank you so much. Darcy asks to be led to the restroom, and he apologizes once more for the mix-up. Darcy tells him she'll be fine on her own, and Ted pours it on. He really does worry about her sometimes. He must have inherited that from her sister. Darcy is taken aback. Her health is fine. She's had a checkup recently, and things are all good. He shoves her into the toilet, calling after, "See you in the morning." Yana then stomps in annoyed. She does not want her here. Ted asks once more, is she gonna be okay on her own? Darcy tells her she'd rather her stay here, but that is not happening. Yana is still perplexed by the wooden box. What is that thing, and why would she want them to have it? Ted offers nothing as usual, suggesting for her to quickly pack up and be on her way. Yana can't help but sneak a peek in the box, catching a glimpse of a weird wooden appendage. Darcy silently enters, informing her that the traditional gift for couples' 5th wedding anniversary is something made out of wood. Yana points out that they aren't married, and Darcy isn't really listening, detailing that it was given as a present to her parents from a witch that her mother knew. Yana is clearly weirded out, but they are not married, so take it back, please. Darcy is confused. Do you not like it? And Yana unloads, well, she does find it quite bizarre, Darcy letting out a slight laugh at her overreaction. Meanwhile, Ted stalks the halls of his facility, stopping at the same leather-masked patient's room. He takes a seat at his desk and looks like something is on his mind. He pulls out the patient Declan's file, filled with tons of more violent and horrifying images, also including a strange man standing over her body. One in particular gives Ted pause, a screaming face staring right back at him. Could this be the mysterious third figure seen in Darcy's vision? Yana is more than ready to leave now, but Darcy stops her in her tracks, requesting for her to fix her some food before she takes off. She then notices the trunk again, and now seated at the table is a large, ornately carved wooden man, which I call Mr. Oddity. Hi, buddy! Yana wants to know why she would take it out of the box, and according to Darcy, she didn't. Yana still brushes off the strangeness, telling her goodnight, yet she discovers that she can't find her car keys. She first checks the car, no luck there, so she combs through the house everywhere they could possibly be, but nope. And Yana thinks that Darcy must be responsible. She informs Darcy, and she's all, oh, you're staying then? Annoyed, Yana barks back that she is not walking back to the city exactly, ma'am. Darcy is delighted. She was hoping the 3 of them could spend some time together, meaning her and Mr. Oddity. Yana slaps together a makeshift charcuterie board, and the pair finally get a chance to chat. Darcy presses her about Ted. When did they meet? Yana claims innocence. Sure, she's known about him for 2 years at work, but nothing happened until after Danny was gone. Yana eyes a strange wooden creature, and Darcy fills her in on her particular abilities. She can read objects, as when picking one up, she can tell you everything there is to know about it. For example, a widow brought in her husband's wedding ring and asked if he had ever been unfaithful. After reading his ring, Darcy knew that he had been many times. Yana isn't a believer either, calling it impossible. You're saying you're a psychic? Darcy shrugs that personal items work best. Anything in close contact with the subject's skin. Darcy is curious if she minds staying out here alone, and Yana admits that she doesn't like it. She can't help but think what happened to her sister. What if another patient of Ted's came knocking at the front door and she's all alone? If one were to knock, Darcy wonders, would you let him in? Of course not, she spits. Do I look stupid? Darcy has no idea what she looks like, I'm blind and all lady, but jabs that she certainly sounds stupid. Darcy asks the same about herself. Does she look stupid? Yana telling her no. Well, her and her sister are identical, and thusly she wasn't stupid either, meaning just like Yana said, there's no way Danny would have let a strange man in the house in the middle of the night. Darcy proposes a bombshell, and in fact was not Olin Bull that killed her sister. She flashes back to that night and see that Danny doesn't open the door but but rather moves away, croaking she can't. Olin gives up on trying to get inside and intends to head back in town to call the police. You just stay here by the door, alright? After a few moments, she checks the hole again and he's gone. There's more odd creaking heard from above and she goes for a hammer along with a flashlight. She then scans the room, spotting her camera. She snatches it and climbs into her tent, zipping the flap closed. She frantically clicks through the photos and sees a man in dark clothes and a white mask, the same from her sister's vision. She is terrified and starts to unzip the flap. She has to steady herself to keep going the rest of the way, unsure of what's on the other side. She's greeted only to darkness, Danny staring deep into the shadows. The white masked man pops in, spooking her. He takes a seat, clutching the hammer, staring blankly at her. He walks inside, and we then cut to the gruesome aftermath, the tent covered in blood splatter. The killer is still just sitting and chilling outside. Well, there you go. Definitely not Olin, eh? Yana is confused. If he didn't kill her, sis, who did? And well, that is the question. We're then treated to another appropriate flashback of the gruff, orderly Ivan making his rounds. He comes to Olin in his room praying and decides to bother him for no real reason. Ivan wants to know who he's praying for. His mother, Olin, answers. Ivan asks his name and he says, oh, that's easy to remember. He tells him not to bother. He's going to be released next week. He's moving on to a halfway house soon and was at St. Delia's for 17 years before that. Ivan then realizes who he is, the fellow that beat his mother to death. He's disturbed. Who would let you back out on the streets? Olin sheepishly insists he's not going to hurt anybody, and Ivan orders him back to bed. Yana is stupefied. How in the world could she know this? Darcy shows off the eye, reiterating personal items worked best. Now word from this week's sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action, making fantasy sports available to everyone. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. It's super easy to use. First, you pick a sport, and they have all kinds to choose from. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. My personal favorite sport is MMA, and so with each fighter they are assigned points based on significant strikes or takedowns, things like that. Just choose if you think it's going to be more or less. It's that easy. They also make all withdrawals fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. They also offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code EXPLAINED to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Now word from this week's sponsor, Raycon, and their best-selling everyday earbuds. You know, nowadays we're surrounded by technology more than ever. All kinds of stuff that's supposed to make life easier, but a lot of times can be a pain in the neck. It doesn't just work. Raycon sent me a pair of the everyday earbuds to check out, and they are seamless. With their 32-hour battery, they are perfect for all-day use, from the gym to walks and everything in between. The buds themselves are packed full of a ton of features like active noise canceling, an ergonomic design to fit the widest range of ears, and includes optimized gel tips for a perfect fit. They also boast multi-point connectivity that allows you to pair with 2 devices at once. These Raycons have features and sound quality that rival the biggest names in premium audio. And if you have any reason you're not satisfied, they have a 30-day happiness guarantee. You can't go wrong. So stop the fuss. Go to buyraycon.com/ending today to get 20 to 50% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 50% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/ending. buyraycon.com/ending. Back at the facility, Ted is wasting the night playing chess with Ivan. He rambles about a boys' school that he grew up at. He heads there once a year and is thinking of returning there soon. You want to come along? Ted is confused by the invite. He spends his weekends catching up on sleep and spending time with Yana. He continues prattling on about a blind nun from his school who told the boys that she went blind after God showed her what hell looked like. That reminds Ivan he didn't know that Danny had a blind sister. Ted is baffled. How does he know that? Well, he happened to walk into her antique shop the other day and nearly had a heart attack thinking that he saw his dead wife sitting there. Ted's cell phone buzzes, breaking the tension, and Ivan makes another chess move, proclaiming checkmate. It's Yana, revealing that she's stuck at the house and Darcy is acting weird. She was saying odd things about being a psychic and pulled out the glass eye from Danny's killer. Only Yana says, according to Darcy, it wasn't Olin responsible, but rather Ivan. This doesn't sit right with Ted. What did she say exactly? Well, exactly what I'm telling you. He, in his doctorly wisdom, declares that she clearly isn't well. He's gonna get her checked out. What about her keys? All Yana knows is Darcy must have taken them. She's asking all these questions and has her on edge. However, Yana isn't worried about her harming her. Besides, Ted says, surely she can handle a small blind woman. Come on. Ted tells her to get some sleep and he's going to make some calls. Yana does have one sticking question. How would Darcy even know of Ivan in the first place? Ted doesn't know either and vows to be there as soon as possible. The old house groans and she stares down to a sleeping Darcy. She then looks to Mr. Oddity and his head is tilted up towards her, startling her good. She looks back and he's returned to his usual position. She sneaks up to the sleeping Darcy and goes right over to the guy. Yana gets right up to the statue, taking in its intricate carvings. She focuses on the face, looking for any reason behind its movement. On the back of the head, there are several holes drilled into it, along with a symbol in the middle. This whole sequence giving us the only information we have about Mr. Woodaman. She utilizes some forceps, digging deep within, and pulls out a small lock of white hair. Well, we've only seen one person in the entire movie with white hair. Any guesses? In another hole, she unfurls a picture of the sisters as children. Then in another hole, a picture of them as adults. In yet another, she is alarmed to find a tooth and jams it back in. In the final hole, it contains a vial filled with what sure looks like blood. Darcy is suddenly awake, growling to put it back. Put them all back now. Yana quickly does as instructed and gives her a hasty goodnight on the way by. She clicks the lights, leaving Darcy in the dark. She manages her way to the table and takes a seat. She moves into position, spreading out her hands to match Mr. Oddity. Sometime later, Yana returns, finding Darcy passed out. She uses the restroom and the power briefly blinks off. She opens the door, finding the pair still motionless. Unable to sleep, she grabs Danny's camera to peruse it again. She plays an older video of Danny and Ted when they first moved in. Ted is freezing cold and chatters, "It's fucking freezing." They turn off the light and Yana plays the clip again. This time when asking Ted what he thinks, Danny's ghost is there with cloudy eyes. In the room, her camera flashes and she appears shouting to run in the flash. Yana turns the lamp on and of course no one is there. She's still shaken up and then hears rapid footsteps. She grabs a knife, attempting to rouse Darcy. There's another thud from behind and it appears to be emanating from the box. Yana slowly approaches and with shaky hands lifts the lid, finding her keys inside. Outside, the light goes off and there's more sounds of footsteps approaching. Danny's ghostly face appears in the shadows and Yana figures now is a good time to hit the road. Good thinking. This all really sounds like it was Danny warning Yana and it was actually helping her to escape here. And no doubt her camera would be a suitable personal object for Danny's spirit to attach to. Later at night, the house is dark and quiet, the stone cascaded in the blue of the moon. Eventually, Ted comes home from work, lightning crashing in the distance. He finds Mr. Oddity at the table and searches around the house for anyone. He comes to Darcy on the ground, on her hands and knees, and remember that weird trapdoor thing from earlier. She's right by it. Look out, Darcy. Well, you can't see it, so you're screwed. He asks about Yana, and Darcy mutters Danny frightened her off. She was always the more level-headed one. He brings up what he was told earlier, that it was Ivan that killed her sister. She turns it on to him. Does he know someone by that name? Well, there is, he spills. And she knows, well, that's your killer. He maintains that it was Olin that killed her, and she counters that he came to save her, in fact. Ted sees the opportunity here to brand her a loon, certain that she's losing her mind. Seeing things that aren't there at all, he warns that he could have her committed if she's dangerous, and she agrees that she is a danger to Ivan. He feigns a lack of understanding. Ivan and Danny didn't even meet. Why would he kill her? Darcy drops the bomb that it was actually Ted that wanted her killed. He asked Ivan to do the dirty deed. Darcy is dismayed. Why couldn't you just break up with her in a normal way? Sure, she would have cried, but now she's gone forever. She then has another vision of the pivotal planning moment between the pair. Ted has already pitched the murder, and Ivan is confused a bit as well. Why not just divorce her, you know? Ted boasts that she simply loves him too much and won't ever be able to get over him. Yeah, I think she could manage, dude. He also acknowledges that when she finds out about Yana, he'll end up losing the house, and he sunk all of his money into the place, meaning they were together before she passed, and Ted didn't want to get caught. It's Olin that overhears their master plan through the air vents, and well, he's busted. Darcy admits she initially planned to kill him, but now thinks it would be better to expose him and ruin his life. She wants him to lose everything. Ted is still open to save his ass and suggests they call the detective on the case and see what he thinks. So let's call him. She growls, "You call him and tell him what you've done, and then send Ivan out here so I can kill him." Ted excuses. He doesn't have his number, so he's got to go back to the office and call him. If he doesn't answer, he'll tell him to come out to the house in person. He stresses when the phone rings, pick it up, and places it on the ground nearby. We hear his car roaring to life, and Darcy begins to sob. He makes it to his office, and as he said, the phone starts vibrating across the way. Darcy rises, and we see that Ted has removed the trapdoor directly in front of her. It's also Ted calling, not the detective. He's trying to trick her. There's a flashback to them talking earlier, seeing Ted silently remove the door. His plan now glaringly obvious. She takes a few steps and unfortunately plummets right through the hole with a shriek and thud. Bummer. Ted meets with Ivan, revealing their plan has been made, despite Ivan never even talking to Darcy. He sends Ivan to clean up the mess, and he combs through the house, Mr. Oddity in his usual spot. He gives it a once over like, what the hell is this guy? He then comes across the hole and Darcy down on the floor below, blood pooling around her head. Surprisingly, she's still alive and gasps awake. Ivan rings Ted, and in code, he says he's found his phone and it's had a fall just like he thought. It is still working for now, but it can't be fixed. And Ted lets out a sigh of relief. He shouts down to her, don't worry, it's nearly over. Darcy gathers her remaining strength and moves her hand, lifting her arm upwards. She mumbles, we are connected, and closes her hand in a grip and starts digging at her chest. There's a glimpse of Mr. Oddity, and Ivan leaves her still shaking. Then there's scraping in the hall, and Oddity has shifted positions. Ivan continues through the house, and Danny's shutter clicks off in the room. He enters to investigate as the ghostly clicking continues. He snatches the camera, greeted by an image of Danny's ghostly face. Darcy digs deeper at her chest, hearing creaking and screaming, certainly sounding like Mr. Oddity is starting to wake up. Ivan descends the stairs, and indeed, the statue has vanished from its longtime spot at the table. He looks down the stairs, and the statue is right there. He lifts his head up, freaking Ivan out. It starts moving its entire body towards him as Ivan stumbles and attempts to flee. He comes to the railing over the table and leaps over the side, tumbling down to the floor. Oddity isn't slowing down, but Ivan is unable to move. The wooden man grabs him by the head, lifting him high into the air. The house suddenly glows brighter, and Danny appears to her sister above the hole. She gives her a faint smile, and Darcy fades away for good. Oddity then ceases movement and stands over a brutalized Ivan. He comes to later in a hospital bed, to Ted wiggling his toes. He notices that he's strapped in, and Ted did what he threatened to do to Darcy. Based on previous instances and his latest crazy story, he says this is the best place for him. Ivan doesn't understand, and Ted brings up that according to him, that wooden gift contained a man that came to life and attacked him. Ivan is all, yeah, that is what happened. Ted scoffs, what do you mean, yes? And he stayed steadfast. That's what really went down, bro. Ted presses him, if it was alive, how did he manage to drag it outside and burn it without incident, seeing the wooden man reduced to a pile of embers? Ted confronts about something else. He said he wanted a priest, and for what else? What was he planning on confessing? He's done a lot of bad things in his life, he admits. Ted knows that he could wind up with life in prison, but he does feel that is better than forever in hell for all of his misdeeds. He promises he won't tell anything about the plan with Danny, but Ted knows it's too risky. If he lets him out early, it could make him look careless, so he's gonna be staying here for a little while, probably forever, where no one asks questions, even if there is the rare occasion of patient-on-patient violence. Even then, things can't always be explained. Ivan pleads with him, no! And Ted coldly slams the door. Ted clearly intends to take care of another loose end here, unleashing the masked guy upon his old cohort. Ivan breathes heavily, and the door swings open. He looks down to the man who chomps down hard on his toes. As Ted returns to his empty estate, he gets an earful from Yana. She doesn't want to have anything to do with him or his haunted house ever again. The fact that he's even willing to stay where two people have died is beyond her. Don't call me again, she fumes. Ted pulls up to a package waiting for him out front. Seeing that it's from Darcy's shop, he opens it up to an ornate box within. He removes the lid, seeing it's that same haunted bell from his and Darcy's previous meeting. He looks it over and considers, after all the strangeness that's happened, is he still a skeptic? He decides to test the bell, and just about to push it, stops himself. He gets more intense and tinkles it. He waits in uncomfortable anticipation for a ghost or anything to show up, confident that he is right as always. There's no such thing as ghosts. Yet he still looks around upstairs and behind him. There's a shuffling of someone's POV coming up from behind, but he looks back to still nothing. Then there's tapping from somewhere, and Ted is looking on edge. He returns his gaze to the bell and has to chuckle for scaring himself. There's obviously nothing to worry about. That is, except for the ghoulish bellboy waiting to take him out. At least in the end, Ted gets his due. But what happens at the house and antique shop? And who sent the bell package? Could it be a shipment from the great beyond, courtesy of Darcy's spirit? Weirder things could happen. Or maybe she had it sent earlier, knowing it arrived the day after the anniversary of Danny's death. The other main thing to really delve into is how does Mr. Oddity work exactly? I feel they hint at enough about how things work in a few key scenes. The first being when Yana decides to go digging around in the holes in the back of the woodman's head, uncovering several of Darcy's personal items. From this, we can put together that Darcy input all these particular requirements in order to fulfill an obligation to bring Mr. Oddity to life. Must have learned all that from her mom, I guess, since she said she got it from a witch. Some kind of specific ritual you have to follow. However, it also appears that Mr. Oddity isn't technically a sentient being, but rather one under the control of the person that completed the ritual, as soon as Darcy passed. Also, the wooden man ceased movement, severing their connection. And this led to the end of the wooden man too. At Ted's hand, it's gone forever. That'll do it for this Ending Explained, but why not check out this video over here and keep the spooks a-going? Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.